Good evening, everybody. We are ready to reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education on August 23rd, 2021. We do not have anything to report out from closed session, so we are on agenda item number 6. Going on with the pledge of allegiance and
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
item number 7 on our agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. Can we just do the agenda, Susan?
There is one correction on item 16.1. It is just an informational item, not for possible action.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Student vote?
Aye.
Full board, all in favor? Aye. And next, agenda item number 8 is we need to administer an oath of office for our student board. And so I will do that. So can you stand so far? Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Kotral Janabi,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California
of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution
to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon
the duties upon
which I am about to enter.
about to enter.
Thank you so much.
Can I check to make sure it's working on YouTube? Okay, thank you.
Okay, and with that, we have agenda item number 9, which is resolution 2022-02, which authorizes our student board member to make motions that can be acted upon by except on matters dealing with employer-employee relations and closed session. We have any questions about that? Comments on agenda item number 9? With that, I think I'll make the motion. So I move to approve the adoption of resolution 2022-02. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, board, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And with that, we move on to agenda item number 10. I know there was a little hiccup with the comments, but do we have those?
So unfortunately, we do not have the school reports for this board meeting, but we will have them during the next meeting. But for now, I will give you a little recap of the opening for Alhambra High School for this year. And so it's been very exciting to see all of the teachers and all the students back in person, and we're all getting right to our work and to our classwork and do all of our homework already. And a lot of our sports and activities have already started up again, and one of them is our clubs. So we're gonna have our club fair next week, and there we'll be able to see all the different clubs that our teachers and students are going to be organizing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. We look forward to the school reports at the next meeting. Thank you so much. Now we can move on to agenda item number 11, which is our employee organization reports.
Evening board members, district staff. It is truly good to be here in person, just like Car mentioned, it's so good to be back in operation, in person in school. Likewise, to be doing these very important proceedings as well. I want to thank the district for considering tonight an upward adjustment to the substitute teacher pay. Offering less pay than the surrounding districts for this important role has put our staff in an extremely precarious situation, leaving classrooms without subs and in turn forcing staff to substitute during their much needed prep time at a time like now when we're trying to establish a good new year for our students. Please understand that while there may be some exceptions to the rule, teachers typically don't jump to offer to cover because the pay is good, but because they know it just needs to get done, and there really is no choice. Some will not, knowing full well that the $40 an hour is far worth less than valuable planning time for their own classes. This then leads to an inequity issue amongst staff, with some carrying the load more than others. I hope you can understand how untenable and unsustainable this situation is, and one that is harmful to staff cohesion. So while this increase in pay for substitutes will not fix things overnight, it is a step in the right direction. But as a district, we need to go several steps farther and re-examine other staffing issues as a whole. What we pay, how we staff our classrooms, what our course offerings are, how we balance the needs of our students and with the staff we have. I ask the board to start looking into what it will take to attract good teachers and retain the good teachers that we have. You are starting to hear, if you haven't already, the drumbeat of a teacher shortage. While this may be true and not something we can completely control, this should not be an excuse to not examine what we can control. We've lost valuable staff members inside and outside of the classroom to surrounding districts. We've lost new teachers who injected new ideas into classrooms in just 1 or 2 short years for unexplained reasons. At Alhambra alone, we started the year with 5 vacancies. That's not because of a teaching shortage. We have numerous teachers teaching 6-5 schedule, meaning they have 0 prep time, a time that's never enough to get the job done to begin with. We have several departments that have had multiple years of teaching 6-5, having to play Rochambeau for who gets it this year. This again is also not a sustainable model, and this too is not due to a teaching shortage. We even have one teacher working a 7-5. This is an unprecedented schedule because we can't retain STEM teachers in particular. Again, please know that teachers are not readily volunteering to take these extra classes. Much like the substitute situation, sometimes that is true, but more often than not, it's because at the end of the day, we care whether or not our kids have teachers in the classroom. We've cut sections for multiple years now and have classes packed to the brim, technically within contract, but detrimental to our students. We're trying to offer 0.6 and 0.2 openings in various subjects, impossible to fill. Again, not a teacher shortage. We're in short in the valuable role of carers who help get our special needs students throughout their day. Our entire SPED department is a revolving door because we can't seem to keep them as well. I could go on the staffing issues. Again, it's time to look at how we're structuring and investing directly into our classrooms, not just chalk it up to there's a teaching shortage. As we come into a year of bargaining for salary and benefits and another bargaining year after that, you have been cautioned that your labor partners will have expectations because of the money coming into the district and because of our larger than lawfully required 19% reserve. I will admit this is true. We do expect our resources to be used wisely and to be used to benefit our students directly in the classroom to the greatest extent possible. No longer should our salaries be viewed as a burden on the budget. Our salaries have steadily dropped from being 42% of the budget to 35%. If the focus of our budget isn't on how to directly invest in the classroom, then what are we spending our money on and what are we saving it for? And 19% reserve doesn't benefit our students. Our kids deserve better, and we all do. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine and Stephanie. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 12, comments from the PTA. Do we have any comments from the PTA this evening? Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Saban, and this year I'm the president at the Martinez Junior High School. I'm happy to report that PTs all around our district are excited to be back in action. The Martinez Council of PTA's membership has already increased over the past year and total in just the first weeks of school. We have chosen as a council to hold our meetings outdoors or virtually, and that trickles down to all of our units. At the junior high school specifically, we've been happy to welcome plenty of new faces that have decided to get involved this year with our many PTSA programs and activities. We're currently forming committees for the annual National PTA Reflections Art Program, for the Halloween event, for Family Trivia Night, and our contribution to the Alhambra High School Homecoming Parade. We are so excited and optimistic for the amazing things that can happen this year. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to agenda item 13, which are staff, board acknowledgements, announcements, and reports. Do you have any announcements or acknowledgements from the board? Move on to 13.1. Do you have any other than 13.1?
No, I'm excited to talk about school.
Let's go to agenda item 13.1.
Great. Well, I want to first off thank all of our staff. It has been a tremendous start to the school year. It is so wonderful to go back on campus and see people interacting with students, hearing kids laughing, seeing them playing with their friends, being kids again, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. You know, we're basically getting back to the business of school, and I am so happy and thankful to see that. Again, I want to thank the team, the staff, and our families, because by far this has been the most challenging school year that I have ever had. And again, as we have heard in terms of finding substitute teachers and some absences in the classroom, I thank everybody who's been covering and supporting to make sure our kids are getting the education that they need. So thank you very, very much for that. I keep wanting to say, we know how to run schools, but the constant changing of guidance, state laws and regulations that are shifting, and again, independent study that we were given 3.5 weeks to prepare for has been extremely challenging. And so I thank our families for their support as we're kind of learning to navigate our new normal. And I think a big part of this new normal is that there are a great deal of uncertainties, and that's a very uncomfortable place for most people to live in. We like our routines, we like to know how to order things, and this has been a struggle for us. And again, I thank everybody for working with us. We've received a number of emails kind of with the reopening of schools to be asked to be more transparent with our COVID numbers and cases. And I want to thank the team. We have a dashboard as of today, so we'll be able to see the number of positive individuals that we have on our campuses. And again, I thank the people that have put in countless hours the past week and a half to help with contact tracing, to help figure out how to deal with the ever-changing guidance and modified and shortened quarantines, some of our new language this year. Again, we're increasing our days of testing at Alhambra High School from 2 to 3 days now, so we will be testing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We know there's some high demand need for our community, and we want to address that and make sure we are covering the needs of our community. And again, want to thank everybody who's literally working day and night to ensure that we're not, we're mitigating the spread of COVID, trying to call and reach out to families, people working over the weekends. And so I don't want to leave anybody out, but what a crazy start to a school year, and what a team I'm so lucky to be a part of. And wanted to just address briefly the quarantine protocols. Folks who have been contacted regarding contact tracing, there is quite the amount of guidance. And so I know there's some confusion kind of related to quarantine, and we're putting our teams together. We're addressing these needs, but there's 3 different types of quarantines. And it's different at the elementary level and the secondary level, so we thank everybody as they go through this process with us. It's been quite the start of the school year, so here's to continued better times ahead and very optimistic that things are going to continue to get better.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you, Julie. I know that you and everybody has been working around the clock with this, and it's definitely a challenge, so thanks everybody for their hard work. I'm wondering, I know we have received some concerns from the community about the location of the testing at the high school, that it's happening during school hours. Can you address that and what's been looked at there?
Sure, thank you. We sent out some folks today to kind of look at the testing organization and can we do better by that? Admittedly, yes, we can. We can add some more signage. I know there was folks that were kind of milling around waiting for results a little bit. I know there's some concerns with having folks that need to get testing on campus and having kids kind of walk through that, kind of through the lines of where folks are. So we are addressing that. We are getting enough signage. We are trying to be as accommodating as we possibly can to our families, knowing that we have after school opportunities and during the days, depending on what family needs are. So while it's not a perfect situation, we are looking at how we can make it better and working on confidentiality issues as well. So it's been brought to our attention.
How quickly do you find out the result of the test?
They're very quick, so within, like a quick 15 minutes. Yes.
And they don't have to stay and wait for it. You can get the results on your app. The biggest issue that I'm seeing is people go to sign up on the app for an appointment. You have to create the account on the app. And then you have to go to the link. There's directions in the sheet. You click here to create the app, and then you go back to the sheet and you click create your appointment. And it'll take you right to the Alhambra appointment schedule. And then you get your testing done and you can leave, and on that original app that you signed up on your account, you'll see the results under history, I believe. So the directions are on the document on the front page of the website, and then on the new COVID testing site that has our dashboard.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, on one more testing question, who can get tested and does it cost anything?
The testing is free and we are making it available to our staff, our students, and their families.
Okay, great. And is there a limit? Like if there are just some people who are feeling extreme anxiety, can they go
There's no limit. There's no limit. You can go as many times as you can, 3 times a week if that's your preference.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just wanna echo what others have said and thank our staff. And I do drop off and pick up for my son every day, and he is smiling, which I can tell the second that I roll down the window and he throws the mask into the window, which is the first time he's taken it off since lunch. And he's smiling and he's happy, and it's just so wonderful to see, and such a testament to our phenomenal staff who are, in light of all the crazy things that are happening, still making school a joy for our kids. So I really, really appreciate that. And I have responded to plenty of emails about this topic this week and had some phone conversations with people. And I think the through line is, for a lot of people, parental anxiety is at an all-time high. And I get that, and I hear that, and I really appreciate all of what our staff is doing to try to alleviate that. And I guess just know they're not alone. But I think it's such a joy to see the kids having such great days, because that does make it, I know for me, it alleviates my stress a little bit to know that my kid's having a great day and learning things. So that's good. And I wasn't confident in my own independent study abilities last year. So I'm very, very glad that we're leaving it to the elementary school and middle school and high school professionals who are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The data we're getting back in contact tracing, are we finding anything about where our students are getting ill?
Thank you. So far, we have been working with Contra Costa Health Services, and our initial cases have been from community spread, not school transmission. So those are our initial cases within the first week and a half as of Friday. And so we're, again, trying to address every quick issue we can, get a hold of all the families who are contact tracing, but at this point, it has been community spread, not school transmission.
Okay, and just a reminder for everybody, there's there's comment cards in the back that you fill out if you want to submit a public comment. This one will open up 13.1 for public comments. Do we have any public comment for 13.1?
How does the concept?
Yeah, sorry, Ron.
On the contacts, run alongside.
What were you looking for?
I thought you said 15.1.
No,
I'm for
13.
15.5.
Okay, we'll bring back to one. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 14. So it'll be coming.
Okay, sorry.
So agenda item 14 is public comment. So under Government Code 54954.3, members of the public have the right to address the board on any matter within the board's jurisdiction. However, the board may not take action on any non-agenda items. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. 20 minutes have been allocated for this portion of the agenda. Additional time is allowed at the end of the meeting if there is not enough time to speak during public comments. And it looks like we have folks for public comments on the agenda item 14. First will be Amy Scott Slovic. We have Amy, just a reminder, we have the timer out there for you, so you got 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Scott Slovic. I've addressed you many times, but tonight I'm addressing you about the infection control. I'm glad to hear about the contact tracing. I'm glad to hear about the having the board, the dashboard set up, because that was one of the things that I was going to ask for today. But I also wanted to say that I'm also wondering about like the notification process, because this is something that I've seen as an RN repeatedly when it comes to contact tracing. It's very hard to say when somebody met the criteria, who did or did not meet the requirement of 15 minutes, while they're not masked in this, within 6 feet or whatever. And so I'm kind of concerned about how they're figuring out and how the notifications are happening as far as to the families, because if you're sitting in a class all day with someone, how do you know when someone was or wasn't next to them, or when they were talking with them at lunch, or they were sitting outside and they were sitting right next to each other at a table? It's very hard to kind of, especially younger kids, it's really hard to kind of track down. So I'm concerned about that. And the other thing that I'm really kind of worried about right now is about with the lunches when the weather changes and people kind of coming inside and doing that if it's raining, how they're going to handle people eating and being in that area. Because we're seeing these numbers just take off in the county and in the hospitals. And the hospital I work in is just constantly packed right now. So I'm concerned about that. And they're actually seeing now with kids that get serious responses to COVID, that get the disease, 50% of them had no underlying condition. So I'm still very concerned about the way this is being passed, and I'd like to hear more about what's happening as far as contact tracing. With us in the hospitals, what we do now is just an announcement made. If you were in this classroom on such and such date, or with us, you were in the clinic or whatever, that there was somebody you may have come into contact with somebody who was positive. And then it just lets the employee know if they want to get tested, they can get tested. If they're symptomatic, of course, you follow the symptomatic guidelines. But I just don't understand why, if there's a positive somebody that was in some classroom, why there just isn't an announcement made to the parents in that classroom that someone was positive. They don't need to say who it was, that keeps it HIPAA compliant. So anyway, that's just my suggestion. And the other thing is, I really am disappointed that this has come back to only being here. Like, you can watch online, but you can't comment live or make interact with it. And I think here you cannot get people separated the way they need to get separated when you have enough people in here. There's no way that they can get feet apart from each other. And so I would like us to really consider the fact that for infection control, being able to have people be involved in this process, but also not be in the same room is a much safer way than to worry about people spreading the disease while they're sitting in here in contact and touching each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Anna Marie?
Good evening, board members. Anna Marie Avila Farias, welcome all back. I know you all been back in person. I just want to thank you for those of you who are prompt to respond to public inquiries from the community, especially board member Martin and O'Brien. I just want to thank you because when I reach out to you all, and Jeremy, you have been very responsive as well. It's really a shame when we elect individuals and feel that they don't answer to the community or individuals. I think we need to learn how to put our personal vendettas aside and learn to look at and work with community members who represent a broader cast. That being said, I would like to echo community member Amy and friend that I'm really disappointed to see that we are not continuing to have public comments via virtual Zoom. You have to think about there's many people who can't even access a public in-person meeting. And to ask us to write items in a forum to comment is really ridiculous when you have a district that is 30% Latino. And to make the assumption that everyone can type a narrative of trying to express themselves of their concerns about their child's education is really disappointing from this board. So I think that the technology is there because we're doing it at the County Board of Education, that you need to figure out how to allow public comment to continue in a hybrid model, not only for public safety of health and well-being for all of us, but for access. That you are just not catering to individuals. You're making a lot of assumptions that people don't have, disabilities that impede them from being able to write to you, or that they are monolingual and can't write in English. I didn't see anything about what was going to be translated, and I personally like having you hear my voice and my tone when I come speak to you all, and not have someone else read what my public comment is. So I really think from an equity position, since you all have been talking about that for the last year, that you all figure out and reconsider your decision to remove virtual meetings from just being in written format or having to show up here and subjecting us to a virus that is on phase 4, and now we have a new variant. So I think you need to be a little bit more thoughtful and considerate of who your constituents are in the district. And I think it's really insensitive of how you guys laid it out, and I hope it gets re-agendized. But otherwise, I will continue to be here, and if we need to pack the house, we'll pack the house until we change it. But I don't think I should have to advocate to that level. It should be pretty obvious what we all need to do to create a fair playground of civic engagement for the community. So thank you.
Next up will be Amber Green.
Hi, okay, I've never done this before, so I was expecting to be called already. So I'm here representing John Muir Elementary. I have 2 kids at John Muir Elementary. And I have 2 concerns I wanted to present. One, I believe that we are the only school in the district that only has the option of indoor lunch. And it was understood that us as parents believed that all schools were going to have the option for outdoor eating. And I have met with our principal multiple times, who is wonderful, and she's brand new in this new role, a brand new school that we have, and I understand the limitations that are there, but I feel like there are other things that can be done from the district to support us being able to have our children eat outside. And so I'm hoping that that will be addressed amongst the district to provide more support to our school so that this can allow for our children to eat outside as the rest of the schools are doing. The second thing that I wanted to address is that when our new school was built, we used to have a crosswalk in front of our school, and that was frequently used with a crossing guard because parents drop off on Vista on the opposite side of the street, and we walk our kids across, or we stop and our kids hop out and they walk across with a crossing guard. Well, they took the crosswalk out, I'm sure there must have been a reason for that when the new school was built, but they never put the crosswalk back in. And so last year, when we went back to just, a minimal amount of kids, it was a bit more manageable, but still a concern, but now we have a full school full of kids, and so you have people everyone's jaywalking nonstop. We've got our cars backed up on both sides of the street with cars that come around the opposite direction of traffic, going the way you're not supposed to go on the street. Then you have people jaywalking nonstop back and forth across the street. And you have parents who are still stopping, letting their kids hop out, and then the kids on their own jaywalk across the street and telling them a child is going to get hit. Because the way that people drive on that street, I know that, we have police that can come, they can monitor that, but this is extremely unsafe. And, I just don't understand why we don't have a crosswalk and a crossing guard any longer, and you have to walk all the way to the other end of this stuff. People just aren't gonna do that, sometimes, rarely. So I'm really hoping that that can be addressed by the district as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Nadine, and I apologize, I can't pronounce your last name.
My name is Nadine Tabor-Kane, and I'm hard of hearing, so forgive me if I respond inappropriately. This is in response to something we've been hearing, so I prepare this. Good evening, Martinez School Board, student representative, and staff. Nadine Tabor-Kane, the president of ASME subchapter 142. It's a union retiree group comprised of the American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees who are retired from Contra Costa County. We have heard that school board members in Contra Costa County, including some of you, have been maligned and verbally abused by people who don't agree with masking, social distancing, and vaccinations where appropriate. On behalf of ASME retirees, I want to thank you for putting into place policies that protect students, staff, and their families, which includes many of us, the grandparents. Thank you.
And then prior to the meeting, folks had the opportunity to submit public comments electronically, via email, or through the website, and Julie will read those into.
The first one is from Jenna Castle. Kids are at a 99.9998 survival rate and are not the ones that should be held responsible for protecting adults. Staff have had a chance to be vaccinated if they choose, and if they don't choose, they all have a 99.929 survival rate. Masks do cause health issues, and masks restricting the child from learning to their full potential. They thrive off of seeing faces and expressions, and looking down at a desk is hard with a mask on. I both advocate for children to be maskless at all times. There are 0 studies to prove masks work or stop the spread in fact. Studies show air particles get through masks, and masks are useless. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Kelly Gilbert. I'm a parent asking the board district to please not change or make the guidelines stricter than they are, to please follow the guidelines of the state and county. Next comment is from Kim Rodriguez. Dr. Sinyard and board members, myself, many other families and staff members are urging you to be more transparent on a regular basis, i.e. a COVID dashboard regarding COVID plus people within the district. COVID positive, excuse me. It is pertinent to allow families and staff know how many people at MUSD are affected by COVID in order to decrease misinformation rumors, increase people wanting to get tested, to decrease the spread of COVID, to allow families to make the choice if in person is still the best choice for their families. We are just starting the school year, and with the lack of transparency, it's causing a lot of mistrust and anxiety in the community. Along with this concern, I still ask that you consider amending the minimal COVID safety practices that you put in place. Following mandates is one level, but choosing to not implement recommendations from CDC, AAP, CDBH is by far disappointing and offering the minimal levels of safety. This sets us up for a more unsafe, unstable, and unsuccessful year. Please do more, we know you can. The next comment is from Jack F. Thank you to district staff for navigating a tough and unprecedented year. I hope this meeting will be a forum for free debate and questions. That said, please do not acquiesce to any anti-mask nonsense, nor make too much space for such position in your discourse. I refrigerate food, I wear a seatbelt, I insist upon others wearing clothes in public, and I promise to do the same. I wear a mask indoors. Again, thank you. Next comment is from Tyler Morrison. A democratic government selecting the science that it wants to enforce on its citizens is a dangerous precedent for that democracy. Next comment is from Rachel Turner, and it just states masking and vaccine mandates, and that's all that was submitted. The next comment is from Stephen Friedman, MD. I am the grandparent of a 7th grader and a recently retired physician who follows the science regarding COVID closely, including issues related to schools. I applaud MUSD's effort to mitigate infection, including requiring masks, upgrading filtration, and opening doors and windows. The leading experts now also recommend HEPA air filters in the classroom to further reduce risk. This markedly reduces virus transmission and is critically important for us during fire season when the level of wildfire smoke pollution will likely require closing windows and reducing the flow of outside air into the HVAC system. Public health and building scientists have made recommendations for such filters, and I would be happy to provide the details. Highly rated air purifiers for a mid-sized classroom that would allow for 5 air exchanges per household should cost about $500. Hopefully money is still available through MUSD's CARES distribution. Regardless, I believe the health of our children warrants this expenditure, and I request that the school board prioritize placement of HEPA filters in every classroom as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration. The next comment is from Casey Farwell. I would like to ask the board and our superintendent to not impose any stricter requirements upon our kids that is not necessary for the California Department of Public Health, along with the Contra Costa Public Health Services and their guidelines that have been set that our district is upholding to. California has been one of the strictest states in the county to enforce such requirements on children. Having recess outdoors with the option to remove their masks is the only sense of normalcy these students have at school. Please do not take that away from them. I see some kids out for school pickup that are beating sweat around their masks just waiting for parents to pick them up, let alone running around on a playground. A wet mask is an extremely ineffective mask and poses more harm than good. All of the advising associations, including the CDC, CDPH, CCPH, and the AAP, agree that it is not necessary to mask these children outdoors. There is an option for those who are afraid of COVID, and that is independent study. Also, I would like to ask our board members to not attempt to recruit people from their own political affiliated social media pages in an attempt to push for more public comments to fit their own agenda when these people have nothing to do with our schools or students. Thank you for your time. That is all I have for item number 14.
Okay. Move on to agenda item number 15, which is the consent calendar. The approval of the consent calendar means that all items listed hereunder are adopted by a single motion, unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Do you have any changes to the consent calendar?
We do not.
Any questions from the board regarding the consent calendar? We can open it up for public comments at this time. We do have public comments on Linda.
Thank you. I just want to point out that this is another $42,000 that we're spending for PE, in addition to the monies that I talked about late last spring. I think it's $120,000 for PE. And when you start adding all of that up, you can actually buy an administrator to only do PD for an entire year. So it does concern me that we continue to spend such large amounts of money for professional development. I'm not questioning whether or not it's good professional development or not, but I am saying that I wonder why it's so expensive and what you might do differently to get more bang for your buck. Thank you.
Is there any other public comments for agenda item 15? It looks like it will bring it back to the board for action.
To approve the consent calendar for August 3rd.
Second. Motion and a second. Stephen vote.
Aye.
Full board, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to agenda item number 16, which are items for board consideration or action. Item One is a timeline for financing schedule for ISM advisors regarding Measure R general obligation bonds. I recall correctly, this is information on all.
Informational, yes.
Go ahead.
So tonight I have Jeff Pickett here from ISM Advisors to talk to the board and provide information about the timeline for sales of our last 30 million in bonds. This is ahead of schedule, but there are good reasons behind it to save the taxpayers money on the lowered interest rates, and our assessed values are good. Everything seems to be falling in the right place. Originally, our last sales were supposed to be done in 2025, but by moving this forward, we would be able to move up, we would be able to finish the last two remaining schools. John Sweat, which is due to begin groundwork next June, and then also start Morella Park within 1 year after that, and have all projects finished ahead of the original timeline of just starting Morella Park in 2025. So I'm gonna let Jeff take this away and talk about numbers, which he's so good at. Thank you.
Very much, Ellen, for the nice introduction. And thank you, everybody, for having me this evening. It's been a couple of years, so some faces I recognize and some new faces. Tonight, just for information, I'm presenting your general obligation bond program. This was started in 2016 when the electors voted to approve 120 million worth of bonds. And we're now getting to the final phases of that, as Helen suggested, ahead of schedule. So I'm gonna go, I don't think I have control of this.
Do you want control?
That's probably best. Anybody up here?
Or the back? Sure.
Whoever said that, if they wanna have control. Don't feel powerful, at least for a few moments here. But do stop me if you have any questions. This is meant for information. I'm here to answer your questions. Please feel free to stop.
Now we're good.
There we go. Okay, this is an overview, a lot of words, but an overview of your bond program. The top bullet just describes some of the prior general obligation bonds that were approved by voters. You've essentially spent all that money and issued all those bonds. Going down to the middle of the page, the third bullet, I'm going to jump right ahead to that. What I just described earlier, in 2016, the voters approved Measure R for 120 million in general obligation bonds, and we've sold those over the past couple of years in 2017, 2019, 2020, and now we're considering the final phase, the final 30 million in 2021. That's going to be ahead of schedule. We'll see in the next slide the schedules. Any questions here? Not the next slide. It'll be, I think it comes later. One of the things that has allowed us to accelerate the bond program, and I'll get to the benefits of it a little bit later, but when you're issuing general obligation bonds, it's highly dependent on your tax base. And as you can see in that right column, you've averaged a pretty strong 3.8% assessed value or tax-based growth over the past 20 some odd years. There's been some ups and downs with the general economic cycle, but over the long run, you've averaged 3.8%. That is very strong, and that has helped allow us to accelerate this bond program. Let's see. There we go. Okay, here is your general obligation bond program. The top box is what we originally expected to sell when we first did this in 2016. The box down below is where we currently stand. We've sold, again, in 2017, 2019, 2020, and we're looking at doing the final 30 in 2021 here. The things that have helped us accelerate and do this and basically get your schools built sooner are that tax-based growth that we just saw and low interest rates. They keep dropping. You see it in the newspapers. People are refinancing homes. at very, very low interest rates. And those are benefiting you as a district, because you can issue the bonds, but also the taxpayers. You know, when we went to the voters, back in 2016, we promised them a tax rate of $60 per 100,000, and we're below that right now. And we've been below that for the past couple of years. So it's saving the taxpayers money. It's also helping the district as you're issuing bonds sooner, building buildings quicker. You're getting ahead of the increasing construction costs. Here's a graph of the interest rates where we are today and where we've been historically. This is going back to 2001, again, a 20-year history, the average over 4%, and you're almost half of that today. And then finally, as the title suggested in the agenda, the timeline. This is just for information. We can move forward or not. But what we are suggesting, and in consultation with Helen, we're suggesting to sell bonds now because the rates are low and you can do it. It's gonna save taxpayers money, it's gonna get your projects done sooner, hopefully at a lower cost, and lock in those interest rates. There's information tonight, we're proposing moving forward in September at your next board meeting. Bringing a resolution before you. Did a lot of talking. No questions yet, but again, I'm here to answer them. Either you've seen this over the past many, many years.
No, I mean, this is fantastic. I always had a problem with not starting Morella Park until 2025, and I just, I mean, for my own personal reference, my daughter helped us with the campaign, and she was at Morella Park as one of the little kids, and she's got 2 years since graduating from high school, so that's sort of, that always gave me a time frame. The fact that we can move this up and possibly have all of the projects finished by 2025, I think is fantastic. And I know we've already saved over $1 million on to our tax base by accelerating the bond program. So I think it sounds fantastic. So thank you for helping us out and making it representation.
Yeah, personally, it's exciting to see since I've seen it from the beginning. It's very cool.
Questions? I think we're good. We really appreciate the information and we look forward to the resolution. Oh, before you go.
Yes.
I guess you can submit. We'll open it up for public comments at this point in time. Any public comments on agenda item 16.1? Does it look like it? Thank you again, Jeff. Any other questions, comments from the board? Excellent. We move on to agenda item 16.2. It's consideration of request to increase the daily rates of pay for substitute teachers for the 2021-2022 school year.
I want to bring to the board's consideration to increase our substitute teacher pay for the 21-22 school year. Thank you, Co-President Hearn, for giving a great explanation of some of the challenges that we're facing right now in the classroom and recruiting substitute teachers. And so wanting to be competitive with our neighboring districts, I am asking that the board consider a 175 per day of service and 205 day per service for long-term subs as well. And can I answer any questions for you?
Can you give us the history, because I know we had a similar request last spring, and then we had talked about, sorry, I want to put you on the spot, but we were talking about what were the long-term effects of doing this. What was the rate that we started at last year, then we increased to, and what does that look like now going forward?
We'll kind of tag team this one. We increased our pay rate last year for the 2021 school year in March. I think March was when we brought it forward. And we wanted to be, again, competitive with our neighboring districts because we were having a challenge recruiting subs when we had moved back in hybrid learning. And so we had moved it to 170, I believe, was what we asked last year, just for the duration of last year, and I'm forgetting what the long-term sub rate was.
I don't know that we did.
I didn't think we did, but so we went to 170 last year. We were previously at
We were at 120 and 150, right back to where we are, because whatever we did for last March, we only did from March to June. And so we reverted back to 120 and 150, and we are having an extremely difficult time finding subs. So we checked out our neighborhood rates and we made adjustments and are looking to have these adjustments made for this year.
So is this something we're voting on for just this year, or is it permanent going forward?
At this time, it's just for this year, and I think we will need to reevaluate as we look towards next year as well and see what our neighboring districts are offering. I have concerns that they're going to stay high, and that's something we're gonna have to take into consideration as we move forward.
Are you taking public comments now?
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
All right.
My turn first, Kathy.
I like control.
I know, where's the clicker? I mean, I think we haven't been competitive with neighboring districts for a while. And I think in years past, it wasn't as much of an issue because we had, family members and grandparents and stuff that were willing to step up, but the stakes are higher now. Some of those same people are not willing to come into the schools. And so I think, and I'm not sure that this will solve that issue for this year, but it's definitely something we should look at. In years, I did the math, I think it's $25 an hour for a 7-hour day. Correct me if I'm wrong, to be a substitute, you have to be a college graduate and pass the CVEST test. So I think that's, no, okay. In years past, those were the requirements. You still have to be a college graduate though, right? Yeah. Okay, so no more CVEST, but regardless, I don't think it's a unreasonable rate of pay. So hopefully this will alleviate some of the issues that Ms. Hearn did speak about earlier.
I'm gonna need to get clarification on whether or not you need to have the CVEST. I think that was last year.
I can clarify.
Thank you.
The state provides different ways to demonstrate what are called basic skills competency. The CVEST was always the most common way, but there are other ways.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the board? Now we can open it up for public comments.
Hi, I'm Kathy Walsh, I work at the junior high school. So if I have to substitute during my prep period, I get paid $40. So still, we're making a deal with these substitutes of getting $200 a day. I don't think that's enough. I would like some retired teachers to be able to come back and substitute, making it worth their time, making it worth them putting themselves in danger. No, that was supposed to be a joke. It wasn't funny. When you come to the junior high, it's always a little bit. There's deer on campus and stuff like that. So I just think that that's still not enough money to actually get people to come and do the substituting. And it's what Catherine talked about before too, that, we don't have a lot of subs. We might have 3 at the junior high. And when people start getting sick and so forth, people can substitute every single day for somebody else. And that takes away your prep time every single day. So I think that we should push for more money for our subs. They really do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for agenda item number 16.2? That will bring it back to the board. This is an action item.
I move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Well, I think you guys said this one now. Full board, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we are moving on to agenda item 16.3, the presentation from Suzanne Murphy. I think it's adult.
Good evening, thank you. It's going to be a very, very quick presentation. Thank you. We submitted our WAS report. The adult school is at the end of their 6-year accreditation. And I'm just going to briefly explain WAS and then the quick 5 steps of this self-study process. We submitted our report. It's 150 pages, so feel free to read it when you have time or skim through it. And we will be having our visit, which will be virtual, which will be interesting because we're in person, they're visiting virtually, but that will take place October 4th to the 6th. So the WASP accreditation process validates the integrity of the school's program and identifies its trustworthy educational institution. The accreditation is a prestigious accomplishment based on a rigorous peer review and has a unique focus on student learning. It provides schools with a system to manage change and promote ongoing school improvement. Through the WASP self-study accreditation process, there are 5 expectations that the school must meet. We have to involve and collaborate with all stakeholders during the self-study process, clarify the school's mission and school-wide learning outcomes, the assessment of the actual student program and its impact on student learning with respect to the school mission, school-wide learner outcomes, and the WASP adult school criteria, which there are 10. The creation of a school-wide action plan that develops programmatic plans to address any identified growth areas, and the development of an accountability system for monitoring the implementation of the school-wide action plan. And we've addressed all of this in our self-study report, and then we'll be having our visiting committee come in October. Are there any quick questions? All right, thank you very much.
Any public comment for agenda item number 16.3? On to agenda item number 16.4. This is the process and interviews necessary to identify the provisional appointment to fill the vacancy existing on the Board of Trustees Area 1. And doing.
Great, thank you. But first off, I would like to thank all of our potential candidates for going through the application process and for putting forth effort to serve our community. I thank you and applaud you for the process. And just so how this evening is going to be facilitated this evening, we have our candidates came in a little bit early and they pulled numbers out of a basket to determine the order of interviews. And so I will ask all of our interviewees a series of 6 questions, and the candidates will have a 2-minute time to answer each question with a final and closing remarks. In just a few minutes, Janelle is going to escort the candidates not being interviewed upstairs, and Kevin will help be our timekeeper this evening. For the process that will happen, one candidate's going to be interviewed at a time. And again, pretty standard format. After the discussion and the board hears the candidates' responses, they will have a chance for board discussion and public comment on any of the candidates' information. And the board will deliberate. How the board will vote, the voting is public. Our board members all have a 3-dot system. So they are allowed to choose whichever way they feel how to give their candidates these 3 dots. Should there be a clear winner, the process will be shown and you can see which candidate each board member has voted for. If there is a tie, then we will go to a second round of voting and the top 2, or if there's a 3-way tie, will be the candidates that will go forward. And then we'll see from there. If there is not a clear winner at that point, then we will have a drawing. And the 2 candidates' names will be, if it's down to 2 candidates, will be chosen, and that individual will be appointed. So hopefully we don't get into these 3 rounds of ties and everything will be quite easy. And again, after that, the candidate will be sworn in by President Gianelli and will take his or her place at the dais.
So just so everybody knows, we're taking public comments after 16.4B.
Correct, I do have public comments for that. Okay.
Any questions from the board about what we're doing?
No questions from me, but I will be recusing myself from this process. Although there is nothing that precludes me from participating in this process, out of a desire to not have any perception of influence, I am going to not vote and I will not be on the dais. So I make my exit now.
Thank you. Okay, so with that,
Great, and then I will have Janelle take, and let me just tell folks the order of interviews are, I apologize. So, Elizabeth Cohen, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Vakova, will be our first, candidate to be interviewed, followed by, Roberta Bobby Korak, then Albert Austin Arthur, and Carlos Melendez. Yes.
Does Congress get to vote on this, or is it just the three trustees?
Just the three trustees.
Thank you.
yes.
Ready? Okay. And then Elizabeth, will you please come forward? Elizabeth, before we begin your interview, for the purposes of eligibility as a candidate for the board, please confirm that you are 18 years of age or older and that you are a registered voter.
Yes, I
Great,
am.
thank you. Okay. Kevin, we ready? Perfect. Here we go. Elizabeth, what are the key areas of importance you would focus on as a potential board member?
Well, I would focus on inclusion of listening to everyone, that trying to I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Trying to gather input from all important stakeholders in decision making, try to be a team with my fellow board members, and cohesion is really important in a decision-making body. What areas? That's good.
Thank you. Number 2, funding from the state and federal government is not sufficient to address all areas of need for students in public education. How will you prioritize expenditures and funding for Martinez Unified?
Well, the kids are the most important thing, of course, that's why we're up here. And second most important is the teaching staff, that, we wouldn't have schools if we didn't have teachers. Teachers are crucial, and making sure that teachers are happy to come to work, that they're well paid and well respected, and so I think that's would be the major priorities for expenditures.
Number 3, how will you respond when approached by a member of the community with a specific concern regarding the school district?
Well, I would encourage them to tell me their concern. I would listen, I would try to, analyze what the possible directions or solutions might be, whether it would be directing her back to her, school to either talk to a teacher or to talk to a principal, or maybe come to the school board, and address their concerns.
Thank you. Number 4, in working with a 5-member Board of Education, there are many diverse perspectives. What steps will you take to have a respectful and trusting relationship with the Board of Education?
Well, first it's listening. Listening is so important. You have to listen and really be open to hearing other people's point of view and differing perspectives. So that, I think that's what builds a respectful and trusting relationship is listening and responding appropriately.
Number 5, what does integrity mean to you and how will you promote integrity in the district?
Well, integrity is doing what you say, saying what you mean, respecting others, showing respect for everyone. And again, listening. I think I've said that on every answer so far. I know I had more in my notes in this, but I can't think right. Integrity means, well, like I said, respect, doing what you say, respecting rules and regulations, following rules and regulations, being transparent with your decision-making processes.
Number 6, what challenges are facing education over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think safety is a continuing challenge. Besides the pandemic, there's, a lot of other safety concerns that schools have with whether it's, bullying or kids safe from being pressured to take drugs and, a lot of other things. Safety is really important. Other challenges would be equity in making sure that all children receive an equitable education, that all children receive a free and equal education that our Constitution guarantees. And the budget, of course, I've been hearing from this meeting, there's never enough money to do everything that you want to do or that even maybe needs to be done. So you have to figure out your priorities with the money and hopefully figure out ways to come up with more money so we could attack the rest of the priorities.
Thank you. Thank you for your participation in this interview. Are there any closing remarks you would like to make?
I just want to say that I'm assuming that you guys all read my application and my resume and everything. I've been a lifelong learner myself and I've education and educating our children is truly one of the most important thing I think that there is. And besides, life and death situations, our children are our future. And, you know, if they don't receive a good, proper education, they're not gonna grow up, they're not gonna be, I'm losing my words here, but they're, you know, they're not gonna be, you know, fulfilling members of society, they're not gonna be, you know, so education of our children is of the utmost importance. And I truly respect and every one of you who are here and have already recognized that, and, you know, the staff that are here and that have dedicated their life to child development, and I truly appreciate that, and I appreciate just the opportunity to speak before you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to stay in here if you would like. When you're finished, you can stay in here if you would like. You don't have to.
Oh, they just told me I could.
You can. You absolutely can. I just want to let you know that you can stay.
Okay.
Okay. That's okay.
Sorry, there'll be a second delay, I forgot to text. There's always bring the next candidate.
Mr. P next.
Next we have Roberta Bobby Moore.
Good evening.
Before we begin your interview, for the purposes of eligibility as a candidate for the board, please confirm you are 18 years of age or older and that you are a registered voter.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
On both ends.
Question number one. I'm sorry, the question's still up there. Okay, perfect. Question number one, what are the key areas of importance you would focus on as a potential board member?
I think that in this very unique situation, safety, of course, comes to mind first. Safety's been an issue for a long time, but this year perhaps more than others. And not just COVID, but all of our children's safety, which brings up some of the other core values, which include communication, also include their equity, racial, gender, it doesn't really matter. Equity is an incredible issue and will continue to be so.
Thank you. Question number two, funding from the state and federal government is not sufficient to address all areas of need for students in public education. How will you prioritize expenditures and funding for Martinez Unified?
I think this has always been an issue, and unusually so this year. It might be less than in past years. Having heard that we have a 19% reserve, that's fairly unusual in the past 10 years that I'm aware of. However, I do believe that as a group, as an organization, we have to develop those core issues, and that's how our money has to be spent. We need to educate our children in a very equitable fashion and make sure that that is happening across the board, whether it's TK, pre-K, all the way through high school and our adult school.
Thank you. Question number three. How will you respond when approached by a member of the community with a specific concern regarding the school district?
sorry I'm so short, but listen. People have the right to be heard, and that's part of the job of being a board member, is to hear the community, hear their concerns, address their concerns as best you can. And it's something that you bought into when you accepted the position on the board. Sometimes it's tough, but it has to be done. You need to respond to the public, and you need to listen to what their concerns are. And as you hear more and more of the concerns, those need to be addressed too.
Question number 4. In working with the 5-member Board of Education, there are many diverse perspectives. What steps will you take to have a respectful and trusting relationship with the Board of Education?
I think that's a key element in making the board work, is to respect other people's opinions, respect their differences, respect that they hear things differently than you do, that they see things differently than you do. And I think that the steps that you take to get there, you start with making sure that everyone knows you're open to hearing what their opinions are. You're open to discuss it with them as well. You don't do this job in isolation. There's a community out there, and that's how you do the job. And so, listen is the key word.
Question number 5. What does integrity mean to you, and how will you promote integrity in the district?
Integrity to me means honesty and standing up for who you are and being who you are at all times. How do I promote that within the district? I think that openness is a key part of it. I think also you have to be honest and fair in all of your dealings, because as a board member, people see you in the community. They look at you as a board member, and you have to be honest to who you are and not go against that.
Thank you. Number 6, what challenges are facing education over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the challenge this year is probably the biggest challenge we've ever met. And I've been in education for many years. So I think the safety of our students as we go forward, I think it's going to be a challenge to blend what we've learned about learning in the past year. It's changed a little bit. We found out that there's things that we need that we didn't have, but we could have. And I think that safety is our biggest challenge. Changing as the world changes is also a huge challenge. And I think that that's something too that goes back to our equity issues.
Question number 7. Thank you for your participation in this interview. Are there any closing remarks you would like to make?
Sure. I've been in education for many, many years in many different ways. And it's the passion in my life, a passion for educating children. And my closing remark is, I would love to serve on the board for another year. However, if there is a better candidate, please go with your gut and take that person. Do the best for the district, because that's what your goal is. And thank you for your consideration on my application.
Yes, please feel free to stay in here.
Already
Text them to the next candidate. Perfect. And our next candidate is Albert Austin Arthur.
Evening.
Evening.
I did bring my glasses. It's been a lucky day.
Good, good. And can I check, are the questions still there for you on the podium?
They appear to be, that's why I pulled up. the
Perfect.
glasses. I really can't do much without.
Thank you.
Should you
Okay.
want me to review these first, or?
It's okay, I'm just gonna ask you and then you can look at them to review.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so and before we begin on your interview, for the purposes of eligibility as a candidate for the board, please confirm you are 18 years of age or older and that you are a registered voter.
I am yes to vote.
Thank you. Okay. Number one, what are key areas of importance you would focus on as a potential board member?
Well, I think the fundamentals clearly are ensuring that our teachers are the best talent we can get. That the curriculum falls along similar lines, that it's very high quality, and that best talent that we look for has those tools to educate our children, which I think is the ultimate goal of this. The other would be, I think, ensuring that as we talk about equity and diversity, that those goals and objectives are properly applied so that one group, whether it's considered minority or majority in that context, is not shortchanged on opportunities that otherwise they might have. So that's a big challenge, I think. Applying the rules and decisions we make to achieve those goals, I think is a big challenge. So those would be my number one, two priorities.
Great, thank you. Question number two, funding from the state and federal government is not sufficient to address all areas of need for students in public education. How will you prioritize expenditures and funding for Martinez Unified?
My first reaction is I find it puzzling that we don't have sufficient funding from the federal government and state. And I have to admit, I have not been involved directly in the education school projects system, even through the education of children other than a short-term on-site council. But my understanding is half the dollars that are spent that are raised in state and taxes go to education as well as lottery. Anyway, that's just an editorial comment. Other than having a good advisor, such as we saw today, that can help the city raise additional funds through bonds and doing that effectively, ensuring that the school district has the capital it needs to fund not only its obligations to hire teachers, but give the tools and curriculum and the special needs that are required to educate all children. That would be the other alternative I would see to ensure that we do have the proper funding that we need. I think the last result would be to go back to our constituents and the parents and the members of the city to raise additional taxes. That would be my last option.
Question number three, how will you respond when approached by a member of the community with a specific concern regarding the school district?
I think that the best way to respond is to listen first and clearly understand that parent or taxpayer of the community has as a concern or a recommendation. It doesn't necessarily have to be a concern or an issue. Understand the context of their concern. Relate to them that I understand my role on the board would be to represent them to the board. That the decisions that are made here are a result of the concurrence and votes, and that they would give strong consideration and a fair hearing about that concern and recommendation, and I will ensure that it gets delivered.
Thank you. Question number four, in working with a 5-member Board of Education, there are many diverse perspectives. What steps will you take to have a respectful and trusting relationship with the Board of Education?
I think that's part of the core of any individual that has ideals and character that respects other people's opinions and gives a fair hearing, if there's to be independent. I will give a little color. I grew up going to many schools. I was a Navy brat and went to multiple schools in my growing up. I also was very active in athletics and team sports, and through my coaches and my teammates, I learned very clearly that you cannot get things done on your own. Sometimes you can, some optimally, but suboptimally. But I think the only way if someone comes to this consideration here is with an understanding that you're part of the team, and that you're not going to get your way. You can't bring necessarily your personal goals and ambitions or political perspectives. Whatever other consideration you might bring, you have to view the decisions that are made here and the issues, the resolution of those issues in the context of what's best for our children. I think that would be a guiding principle for me. And joining resolution of issues or disputes.
Question number 5, what does integrity mean to you and how will you promote integrity in the district?
Well, by demonstrating integrity, I guess I'll answer the second half of that question first. You can't talk integrity, you can't promise integrity, you have to demonstrate integrity. A lot of hard lessons I've learned growing up, and believe me, I'm well grown up. Decisions that I've made that as a youngster, and I'll include that as a young adult. I wouldn't necessarily say that I regret, but in hindsight, I understand they're not the best decisions, and probably lack some integrity because they were self-serving. But certainly a core component of raising our 2 children, a son and a daughter that are now in their 30s. Daughter Riley lives with her husband on Orange Street. She's lived there for 6 months now with our 2 grandchildren. My son, who's engaged, just went into contract on a home on, what's the name of the street? I'm not gonna remember, but that's right nearby. My wife and I were adamant about morals, character, integrity within the home and outside the home, and that had to do with every element of interacting with other human beings. And honesty was rewarded irrespective of the context, whether it was telling us that something had been done wrong or a mistake had been made. But honesty and integrity were rewarded. Didn't mean there wasn't consequences. But long answer and rather rambling, I apologize, but I don't think there's anything anybody can do well without having integrity.
Thank you. Question number 6, what challenges are facing education over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, other than the curve of COVID, this was tossed into the whole mix. I think it's affected every element of the decisions that the school board makes, how teachers operate, new sources of funding that weren't anticipated from the government as a result. Competition for talent seems to be a real ongoing. I think that will always be a challenge, but again, from the outside looking in, there seems to be, and again, I'm just stating the obvious here, so much division around competing interests and balkanization of those interests. I think that truly is the biggest challenge. I think everyone, parent, school board member, teacher, with maybe a tiny exception, when it comes to education, all have the same goal. And I think when these competing interests, and I'm not promoting one or the other or saying any of them are less important than another, but when one drowns out another, and I'm being vague because I don't want to particularly point out any of the issue that might be a hot button, but honestly, I think the challenge is how do we distill down to the core common values of everyone that comes to the board with an interest or a concern or recommendation or even amongst ourselves. And keep in the context that we're here for the education of our children. And by the way, in the interest of the taxpayers who fund these schools.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, our final question. Thank you for your participation in this interview. Are there any closing remarks you would like to make?
Well, I should thank you for the consideration first and foremost. And Julie, thank you for the Q&A. It was relaxed. I tell you, I did play a bit of baseball and I played in front of tens of thousands of people and never had a heartbeat filled like But that's neither here nor there. In the letter that I wrote in terms of, my letter of interest, on a very personal note, I would not be standing without teachers. This was in different times, with different pressures. But in hindsight, if they recognized my potential and other students' potential, they demanded that I pursue achieving my full potential. They weren't afraid to remind me in fairly severe terms when they thought I was getting out of bounds. And although I at the time didn't like it, again, in hindsight, honestly, everything I've achieved outside, marrying a beautiful wife and having children, I can attribute to the teachers and coaches and mentors and guardian angels that guide me. And I'd like to give that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final candidate will be Carlos Melendez.
Hey, Julie, should I do this on camera?
Yes. Oh, sure. No, that's okay. I
Have my name written all over it.
no worries.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I'll vote for him.
Oh, excuse me. Evening.
Hi.
Before we begin your interview, for the purposes of eligibility as a candidate for the board, please confirm you are 18 years of age or older and that you are a registered voter.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, question number 1. What are the key areas of importance you would focus on as a potential board member?
Key areas of importance, and obviously we'll start with the underlying safety and finance and monitoring those things for the students and providing the best safe environment we can and utilizing the district dollars to the best of their ability. But for me, beyond that, are numerous. Using my background as an engineer, I'm interested in helping with facilities and planning, with $60 million worth of short funded or unfunded projects. Tying that in with utilizing the contacts in the city, contacts with the businesses in the town, and helping expand our presence, expand the communication and networking we have in the community for the benefit of the community, creating opportunities for the students and then for the local community business owners to benefit from that. So many thoughts in my head. Yeah, part of that is, again, expanded programs. One of the ones that I'm working on right now is with Captain Frazier in developing a mentoring program for, with ACE, the Architecture, Construction, Engineering, and providing opportunity for pathways for students in high school to understand what's available to them in the real world. A program that can be translated to the shortage of teachers and any other industry, and creating, again, pathways and identifying opportunities at the high school level and even reaching further beyond to the elementary and junior high and elementary levels. So again, creating opportunities, and then in turn, that benefits our local community, providing students the potential future labor force to participate in the workforce.
Thank you. Question number 2. Funding from the state and federal government is not sufficient to address all areas of need for students in public education. How will you prioritize expenditures and funding for Martinez Unified?
Funding is always going to be an issue with schools, and not having enough dollars will always be an issue. So the board is charged with identifying the greatest demand, trying to make the dollars stretch and service all of the stakeholders and benefit everybody. I think the prioritization on the board's part is how do we increase that revenue? How do we share resources? How do we solve these problems and make our budget go further? One of the Angela was talking about the traffic issue at John Muir this morning, or this past week with drop off and pick up. I don't know if this board or anybody from the district has reached out to the city. I just had lunch with the new city engineer, who's a friend of mine, and to make that connection, make that contact, hey, can we utilize your services rather than go out and hire a traffic engineer to solve the problem? There's a lot of opportunity to share resources and make our dollars go further and benefit from programs and the opportunities, the salaries for our teachers, and improve our program and attract more students rather than what we're currently seeing is the loss of students. So thinking out of the box, creating opportunities, and trying to attract more students and business participation, business interest in our programs to our funding source.
Question number 3. How will you respond when approached by a member of the community with a specific concern regarding the school district?
I have a lot of these conversations with people now throughout the district, different trustee areas, as a father, as a school parent, and receive a lot of these, insights of, hey, there's an issue here, why aren't we doing this? What kind of typical parent gripe session kind of things. And whether it be on the school board or my own personal life, my approach to a lot of these things is to do random sampling, random analysis, ask questions, find out, hey, is this that big of a problem for everybody? Or is it a problem for this one individual? And so doing a little bit of research, asking the questions, contacting you, Julie, or reach out with the other board members, find out, hey, have you had an experience with something like this? Asking other parents and teachers about their experience with whatever the situation might be, is the first step, right? Garnering that information so you can make an informed decision. And then from there, sharing not just the problem, because I detest when somebody says, hey, there's a problem here, but I don't have a solution to offer. Come up with a problem, identify a potential solution. It might not be the only solution, it might not be the right solution, but it's putting thought to all the participants, all the stakeholders, addressing the needs and moving the problem, getting rid of the problem. Follow up. And then with that, following up with the community member, following up and providing them a response, whether they like it or don't like it, at least some closure to follow through and address their concern.
Thank you. Question number 4, in working with the 5-member Board of Education, there are many diverse perspectives. What steps will you take to have a respectful and trusting relationship with the Board of Education?
So my regular career, I'm a construction manager, engineer, I do a lot of project delivery. And that, by definition, has many stakeholders. A lot of people are interested in, outcome of a project, funding of the project, issues associated with the project. You're dealing with contractors, subcontractors, and service suppliers, community groups, environmental groups, owners, outside third parties. So this situation is not really new. It is just, different approach. And so my approach to that is working with respectfully, listening, understanding, empathizing, and collaborating. I mean, I think we're all here for the same reason, for the benefit of the school, benefit of the schools, the district, the students, the parents, the community. Our priorities and our approaches might be different, but being able to at least communicate, share those, understand, empathize, is going to be the kind of key to addressing those diverse perspectives and sharing your own perspective, sharing your own motivation, and prioritizing that as a group.
Thank you. Question number 5, what does integrity mean to you and how will you promote integrity in the district?
Integrity to me is doing what you say and saying what you do. And being honest, being truthful, being there. I like to practice integrity rather than talk about it. My experience, my volunteerism with the community groups, I think speaks to that effort. With the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, my parish, Little League, NYBS, Little League, and PHSMA, soccer, volunteer, coach, referee, for the benefit of the kids, and not just my kids, but the kids they play with, their peers, and teaching them, taking advantage of those opportunities of doing and providing input and showing them right and wrong, good and bad, hard work that pays off. Again, doing what you say, saying what you do. So being consistent, but being respectful, being communicative, and listening as well as speaking. Are all parts of integrity that I try to practice in my daily life, my professional life, my personal life, with the activities associated with my children, my family.
Question number 6, what challenges are facing education over the next 3 to 5 years?
It's probably the same challenges that have been facing education for the past 3 to 5 years, if not more, but it is, I was just talking to Janelle upstairs about it, and one of the issues that I feel that we have, not issues, but challenges we have with education is the broadening definition. And I think it's in the questionnaire for the application is, the demand for education has gone from reading, writing, arithmetic to equity and creationism and character building and all these things that have been put, the burden has been put on the school district or the teachers in the classroom without a commensurate increase in pay or a commensurate increase in time associated to that effort. So, education will kind of continue to evolve and address this dynamic situation, add to it the health and safety changes. We're finishing the completion of John Muir and Las Juntas, and now Merle Park and John Sweater are up next. But the design parameters associated with those schools are going to be completely different already from the design parameters we experienced from John Muir and Las Juntas, because those were predicated on Sandy Hook and the violence associated with that, having a key point of entry and, place to, secure the kids and in the case of gun violence. Now we're having to deal with health and safety, COVID, airborne illnesses and ventilation requirements. So our understanding and being able to, for lack of better words, pivot and address these things as they come is going to be a challenge. Again, utilizing the same dollars or the diminishing dollars to reach the same objectives. So, and then in addition to that is it's already been addressed here this evening, is the labor shortage. And it's an area that is close to my heart, a little bit self-serving because I'm a consultant and really dependent on new labor and people coming in So, which is one of the reasons I've been on the mentoring program.
Thank you, thank you. Our final question for the evening, thank you for your participation in this interview, and are there any closing remarks you would like to make?
You know, I could sit here and restate all the things I've said about my participation in the community and I'm a teacher, and so I understand that aspect of it. I have a desire to teach and share my knowledge. I'm an engineer. I have a desire to share my technical knowledge and abilities to build things and stretch a dollar and address stakeholder needs. I've stated all that. You should have seen an application, it's been in the questionnaires. I made the choice after I ran for the election in November and was not successful that I was going to consider effort or be considered effort in the district and work on this mentoring program and work on being present. So I like to say that whether you take me or not, I'm still going to be around and I'll still be participating. I might not be sitting up here with you, but my devotion to the district is complete. It's for my kids, it's for their friends, it's for their peers, it's for future generations, it's for the workforce in which I participate, it's for our teachers, it's for the staff that helps deliver this district. And I do hope you guys make the right decision. Thank you both, or thank you all.
Again, another huge thank you to all of our candidates. Appreciate all of the time and effort that you would put in and appreciate coming forward. It's never easy to be interviewed, and thank you very much. And okay, we'll take.
Great, so at this point, we move on to public comments for agenda items. We have some. Okay, we'll start with Amy Scott Sloan.
Hi, thank you to everybody who came out to try out for this and to be, put up for contention for this. I think everyone really cares and is putting themselves out there. So first, I just want to start by saying that. So first off, I want to say that I'm speaking in favor of Beth Cohn. She has experience working for years with Head Start. She has experience with the Brown Act. She's worked with children for almost all of her career. The director in the letter that she wrote, the director that she referred to that wrote the comments for her about saying how dedicated she was and how she loved to work with kids and that she put the kids first. Was a friend of mine, and that holds a lot of weight coming from that director. So I think that has the flexibility in her schedule right now, and I think that that's really important. She's worked with lots of different, having to work with different commissions and different groups having to work together, as she would have to do here in this group, and she's like I said, just people, if you do Head Start for all those years, you have heart. I mean, it's a big heart to do that kind of work. And she also has the experience working through other jobs as well, working with people with low income and that have a lot of needs. And I think one of the things we've talked so much about here in these meetings is about the need for more equity and for the people in the differences throughout the different districts socioeconomically. So I think that would be a benefit with her having that experience. As far as the other candidates, I think everybody had pros and cons that I have with that. I wanted to say that I really respect that Trustee Horak did recuse herself and wasn't voting on this. I do have some concerns about having a mother and a daughter on the same board. Whether or not it's legal, okay, it's legal. Whether or not it's maybe ethical or it could cause some issues with that, I have concerns about that. As far as Mr. Melendez, he's done incredible work in the community with kids. I just really appreciate all the work that he's done with the education and being there. But one of my concerns is that his district already voted for somebody else, quite a bit more than they had voted for him already. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm also concerned because the comments about creationism, I agree that we teach our kids, we want to teach kids how to like make an ethical decision, but deciding about anything that has to do with religion or talking about that specifically as far as in the terms of ethics is a big concern to me on a school board with the separation of church and state. And Mr. Arthur, I had the pleasure of meeting a week ago at the farmer's market, and we had a great conversation. I felt like he really listened. We had very different political opinions, and I felt like the infection control might be an issue. So thank you very much.
Next up is Janet Siebenroth.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for having me the second time here at the podium. This time I'm speaking as a parent, a community member, and a friend of the Melendez family for the past 8 years. I believe that Carlos Melendez is extremely well-rounded as a candidate for the open position of Martinez Unified School District Board. With his many positive, high aspirations for the potential of the Martinez School District and a well-thought-out plan to help achieve those goals, I feel Carlos would be a great asset. He has set himself up to be available to the community he has a passion about through his countless contacts, through his years of involvement in sporting programs, church involvement, scouting, and so much more. Thus, Carlos is a unique candidate to the board in that he has children in 3 levels of the Martinez School District. Carlos also has a well-rounded and realistic understanding of the upcoming board obligations and responsibilities. His many years of background, training, and work experience in a variety of aspects surrounding construction management give Carlos the perspective needed to see the district through some of the upcoming issues facing the school board. For these reasons and so much more, I feel that Carlos Melendez is the right candidate for our school board. Thank you, everyone.
Anna Marie.
Good evening, Anna Marie Avila Farias. I too would like to call out to Trustee Martin for stepping down. However, I do want to express my concern about a mother-daughter team serving on this board. Why it is not against the education code doesn't mean that we should go ahead and practice that. There's perceived conflicts of interest, and there's also just the optics look really bad, and I'm really disappointed that a mother would put her daughter in that situation with the optics. And I think, I'm very grateful for the candidates that did apply. This is really hard to do. So I commend people from the community stepping up and having to interview in a public forum. I think we are just gonna have to go on individuals' resumes and experience. I personally have had the opportunity to meet Beth. I'm very impressed with her community involvement with early childhood development, special needs, and very low-income families. The diversity that she brings to that, I think, is very important. And I think she is a breath of fresh air of a new perspective to the district and a different voice that is so desperately needed on here. So I hope that you put that all into factors of what is critical and what is needed. Again, I'm an advocate of diversity. We lack diversity in this district, and anything we can do to promote diversity and individuals that come with that experience to enhance and better education is better for the greater good of the community. So thank you. And I really, again, hope that there's a process that we do not consider a family team on this board. That is a disservice to the community.
Nadine.
I'm Nadine K. I'm speaking on my behalf as a resident of Martinez. I am very pleased with the quality of candidates Martinez citizens who are willing to give their time to support the education of all children in Martinez. They're standing up to fill a need, a District 1 vacancy, is very commendable and an example of our community which places high regard on the education of all of our children. Saying that, I do have a favorite. She wants to serve the needs and interests of our children, parents, teachers, and all staff of Martinez Unified School District. She enjoys research, developing policies that serves those she represents. She takes pleasure in working on boards, and she has a history of doing so. She has critical thinking capacity. She's willing to make tough decisions, and even when they're unpopular. She has no problem with establishing boundaries. Two things stood out for me reading her application. One was her perception of a need, that Martinez Unified School District could use more parent caregiver engagement, and she has a plan to encourage and create these relationships. Culturally appropriate communication that transmits the message not only of an invitation, but a sincere desire for inclusion and interaction. Two, she brings a unique viewpoint of education from the many roles she has served in her life and the perceptions from each of them. She has taught, she's been an administrator for a large early childhood statewide education program, and she's been a president of a parent-teacher association. Speaking as a lifelong resident of Martinez Unified School District 1 and a consumer of those products, I feel she, Beth Cohn, is exactly what and who we need at this time. Thank you.
Christina?
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm speaking on behalf also of Beth Cohn. I'm her former supervisor at the Head Start program, and I can attest to her tremendous skills in working with the public, in working on behalf of teachers, and most importantly, on behalf of children and their families. Beth has a passion for parent involvement. She created many parent involvement programs within the Head Start program. She was staffed to the Parent Policy Council, which is, those parents are elected into that capacity and are equal in decision-making with the Board of Supervisors. She worked very well conveying messages back and forth. She worked within the boundaries of the Brown Act and the Better Governance Ordinance, and she made sure all of those meetings were run accordingly. I think it's very impressive to also note that she was on the National Head Start Association Board of Directors. Her reach was across the entire country and the Outer Pacific Islands. And she made some many nationwide policies via that membership. So I can't speak enough for her, that I really commend her to your vote. And then I would also like to add that I also don't think it's a really good idea to have a mother-daughter team on the board. It's not good luck. All right, thank you.
And I believe we have some public comment that was written in, email.
Thank you.
Then you might have more, it's just loading.
Okay, I'll start then, and then we can see what else we have. First comment is from Jason Pfister. Hello, board members. I would like to encourage you to fill the vacant board seat with Beth Cohen's candidacy. For the time I've known Beth, she strikes me as incredibly passionate on all issues facing our schools, as well as embodies creativity to resolve any challenge. Her think outside the box approach is both refreshing and needed during this unprecedented time. Her perspective would be invaluable to an extent where all parties win: students, teachers, administrative staff, the outlying community, parents, business leaders, public safety, and more. Beth Cohen is undoubtedly the best candidate and partner that the school board needs. Thank you. The second comment is from Philip Dutton. When interviewing the trustee candidates for my district, please ask how they will use their role to improve the district's equity and inclusion. I hope the board recognizes there is a long path towards perfection and that proactive attitudes towards the topics are necessary for continued improvement. The next comment is from Kevin Murphy. I would like to comment on the Martinez School Board Trustee Area 1 selection. I know Carlos Melendez would make a great addition to the school board. Carlos, being a parent of students of the MUSD and active in our community with coaching our kids and volunteering at school functions, would help on items the board needs to work on. Please appoint Carlos Melendez to Martinez School Board Trustee Area 1. Final one is Michael Sylvie. Beth Cohen is a wonderful community member that has our community and children in all of our best interests. Please consider her for the Board of Trustees. Thank you. Just double checking to see if any more public comments.
Is there any way I could speak, or do I have to do a form or?
So we don't have a public comment card, but go ahead.
There you go.
Thank you. Just fill it out after your public.
Okay, you got it.
Hi, I'm Jeff Sherwin. I'm a parent here in the Martinez High School District, and I know Carlos Melendez. He tried to get elected against Jonathan Wright. We were in support of that. He's the only one here who actually put in for that position, which shows his dedication coming back after that election. He was only within a couple hundred votes of the sitting president who had been on the school board for years, so I think that says a lot about him as a quality candidate.
Hi, I'm Tina Sherwin. I'm a resident of trustee area 1, and I support Carlos. And I do agree that we should not have a mother-daughter team on board. And just having listened to all the interviews and read the applications, I think we need to go based on the interviews. And to me, the only 2 people you should even consider are Carlos and Albert, based on the interviews. And I don't think it's right that we should be reading comments made from people who hadn't even heard the interviews. But I know they're allowed to do that, but those are the only 2 people I think we should consider.
Other public comment, then?
Public comment that is just general.
So that'll be 17. At this point in time, public comments, and bring it back to the board for action. Any board members need additional time to review materials and okay. Yeah, why don't we can take a 5-minute break at this point, we'll, board members will review some of the materials and we'll re-adjourn in 5 minutes.
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's coming out. No, not that. Yeah, thanks.
Are we still on YouTube? Just rolling around, looking at her phone.
That's the camera's right up there. You're like on camera right now.
I'm just sitting here like, you can't see from my mouth.
Back to the board for any discussion or comments. Do any of the board members have any discussions, comments, questions? Ryan?
I'll make just a brief comment that we've done a lot of hard things in the last 6 months, and this is one of the really hard things. I was impressed with everybody's applications, what everyone had to say tonight, and I hope that regardless of whether you're appointed or not, you'll keep doing what you're involved in doing, and there's ways for all of you to contribute. We need you to, please do. We can find you a committee or a PTA or a site council, so please don't be discouraged if you aren't appointed. And thank you so much. I can only imagine that it must be incredibly difficult to get up there and be interviewed in the public, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I will echo that. I've actually had the unique experience of going through the process. And it's a little surreal. I've also been on this side a couple times, and it's just as nerve-wracking. I really respect and appreciate a lot of the answers. I mean, they're wonderful, and we clearly have wonderful people in our community that are here for the right reasons. And it is a really unique situation where we're put in a place to do what we think is best for the district right now. And also step into the shoes of, who is going to best represent the constituents at that point. And so, yeah, I agree. Thank you for what you've already done for our district. Thank you for being brave enough to even want to take on this task. It's not a fantastic give back right now, and I think all of you have come with your eyes wide open, knowing what it takes. Thanks for your time tonight, and for your family supporting you and your friends. We need a lot of that, and regardless of what happens tonight, we'll still need that. So thank you.
I just want to echo the comments of my fellow board members and thank all the candidates for coming out. I know it's not easy. I've been at that podium just a couple of years ago. So I know what it's like to stand there and see the 2 minutes on the board and answer those questions. It is a bit nerve-wracking. Sometimes you can lose your train of thought or get tongue-tied. But what was clear is that everybody's dedication to the district and improving the education for our students in our district. So again, thank you to all of you who have applied, and if you're not successful tonight, please stay involved. I think that is important for this community, is to get as much involvement as possible. And you see, a lot of people came out for tonight's meeting, so we want to thank everybody who came out. So at this point, I think the process is we take our 3 little dots, right, and we're supposed to vote as board members.
Okay, Kevin, can you put it on the sheet?
We do not have any ties in our first round of voting, so we will not have to go to any tiebreakers. And I want to welcome at this time Bobby Borak. Bobby, come on up. You can take a seat next to Claudine's profile, and you'll have to stand. State your name.
I, Bobby Borak,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of
of
California
the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution
to the
of
Constitution
the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the
of
Constitution
the State of California,
of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I make this obligation freely, thank you,
without any mental reservation
without any reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon
the duties upon
which I am about to enter.
which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
She's trying to find
Around, but they're both positions are great. And I'll do the treasure.
Just recall and
The one that voted for the race meeting. We get to welcome Bobby back real quick.
Yes, let's do
Welcome back. I wanted to at least acknowledge what a tough, this was really tough. And I think one of the things that I really took into consideration, we have a really new team. And, you know, what Bobby didn't talk to us about today was in her thing. You know, I've had this opportunity to sit with her on this board for 7 years. And so a lot of the questions that she asked today about integrity, I got to sit next to her on a lot of those decisions. And I hope we did the right thing by our constituents. She's been supported by our community. She's ran at large. She's, you know, but she had to leave because she bought a different house. She didn't choose to leave the board. And so, you know, I welcome you back there. I think, hopefully we're a new team. And I look forward to working with you. I know it's not always normal to have a mother-daughter team. But I also have worked with both of you, and I think you have very different voices and perspectives, and I respect your decisions as well to go through this process. So thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Bobby. I want to welcome you to the board. I sat in the seat before, and I can't wait to meet with you and learn from you all of your experience and devotion to this mission. Congratulations.
Thank you all, and I need to address the issue that was discussed in public comments because I think it's only fair that the public hear it. My daughter and I had lengthy discussions over whether or not I would apply, why I would apply. But you need to know that we both know the Brown Act very well, that we have no intention of violating the Brown Act. And we think in very different ways, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of her, I'm very proud of me. And we think in different ways, and I think we both have a lot to offer the board. But I also want to commend the other applicants because I think they did an amazing job. Reading your resumes was very good for me as well. And I like to see that diversity too. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to finish up my term that I left 2 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we get to move on to agenda item 17, which is additional comments from the public. And I believe we had additional public comments come in while we were in session.
And we will forward those comments to you, to all the board members at this time.
Okay. So with that, we will move on to agenda item number 18, which are comments from the superintendent, board members, and future agenda items. Go ahead, you can start us off.
Thank you. First off, I just want to congratulate our new board member. And then second off, I just want to thank Jeremy for administering my oath of office to me. It was very exciting to do that. So thank you so much.
So don't rush out here. You got a document you need to sign for.
Yes, no comments. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, and I look forward to learning from your experience. This is my first board meeting with a live audience, and it's been exciting to actually have people here. It definitely changes the dynamic. I said this a couple of months ago too, that I would like to see us keep the Zoom format and people have the option of attending that way or coming in. There were some comments that I agreed with about access, disabilities, people that just don't feel safe. I know we have some tech challenges right now, but I'm really hoping we can overcome those and look at keeping that as an option because I just think it makes it, we want to encourage public discourse, public participation, and that's so much easier on Zoom where people don't have to guess what we're going to talk about and send in their comments ahead of time. So having that live option to comment live from home or to come in, I think is really important.
I will, I missed last hour, so I will just reiterate that for me, this district and the health of this district is of utmost importance. And so I want to reassure people that I will absolutely not let any relationship get in the way of my duties as a board member and what I believe are the right decisions that we as a board of 5 will make for the health of the district.
Peter, anything? I have a couple of future agenda items. I'd like to see some photos of Martinez. See it and see how, because we're going to see how the status of construction there, and then, an estimated timeline is really, we can break down on John's slides. That would be fantastic. And I think that's it. Julie, do you have anything?
I don't. I just want to welcome our newest board member and again, thank all the candidates out there that put themselves forth and really do want to encourage you to please keep working with the district and serving on committees. It's greatly appreciated and thank you and welcome.
And with that, we can adjourn our meeting tonight at 9 p.m.